Today we're going to talk about shadow work. Dun dun dun. I feel like it's such a dreaded word, shadow work. Shadow, I think it's the whole implication of a negative thing, but shadow work is not negative, it's not dark, and it's definitely a necessary step, tool, resource, thing that you need to do on your spiritual journey. Welcome back to my channel. I am Ashley, an empath and a light worker, and I'm here to help you tap into your intuitive abilities and help you lead your best spiritual badass life. Shadow work. What is shadow work? Do I need to do it? Can I just skip this part? Do I not need to find my shadow because it sounds really scary? Yeah, your spiritual awakening or journey of your inner work is all your own. However, shadow work is definitely necessary to grow spiritually, physically, emotionally. So the shadow was first introduced by Carl Jung into the Western world, who is a psychologist, who basically said we all have shadows. And a shadow is just parts of our personality that we have not accepted. And it's parts that have been suppressed from our conscious mind to our unconscious mind. It's any part of our personality that our ego fails to see, accept, embrace. It gets pushed down from the light conscious into the dark, the shadow. So that's all that means, from the light. We all have a light side and a dark side, but we just are not aware of our shadow self. So going through this work is really to dig out the shadow parts of you and to realize why things trigger you and realize why you have some behaviors or patterns that just keep repeating in your life and you don't know why. That's where shadow work is going to come into play. And the more I do shadow work, the more I just have epiphanies after epiphanies of like, oh, this is why I do it. And not all shadow aspects are bad. You're going to find some of your shadow aspects you pull out and you're like, oh, this has great parts of me in there that they just weren't accepted by people around you or yourself. So you suppress those parts of you. When we're born whole. We're born with no, we have no awareness, if you will say, of what's good and what's bad. We're just here to have a good time. We're just here to fulfill our soul's purpose. And when we get here, and then our shadow really begins in childhood, because that's when you start to learn, you become aware of the influence of the people around you, your parents, especially your parents, or your caretakers, your teachers, society, friends, and you start to get this shadow aspect of yourself. So it's things that people have told you about yourself or that you shouldn't be. So it's things that society or your parents or yourself has that embrace of who you are. So for example, of a shadow aspect, you're a little girl and you are so loud and just so much. This reminds me of my 4-year-old. She's so much and she just wants to have a good time, and she's loud and she's outgoing, and someone says to this little girl, they say, you're too much. You're too much. You have to take it down. Okay. So this little girl says, okay, well, me being too much and speaking my mind and being loud, that's not good, right? That's bad. I'm being told by my parents and my teachers, this is bad. So this little girl pushes it down into her shadow, and then she becomes, let's say, submissive. She grows up and she is quiet, and she now identifies as a shy person, and she doesn't speak her mind, and she doesn't talk back, and she finds herself in toxic relationships where she is not outspoken, not speaking her mind, not living her true self. So and she doesn't know why. And it all comes back to like parts of her that she suppressed, and she's not even aware of. That's what's the issue in her current circumstance. So those are shadow aspects of yourself. Just an example. The shadow grows every time we repress it. So some aspects of ourself are going to be a lot bigger than other ones. Okay. So another example, I think a common shadow of a lot of men are a young man, you're young and you're told you're crying over something. And a lot of times as our society, we tell men or boys at the time, don't cry, you're being a girl. Don't cry, you're being a baby. Men don't cry. Men don't show emotions. So many men have this, I'm a man, I have to be strong. Crying is weak kind of personality. So they push that down. They repress their emotions. They get into relationships where they don't know how to show their feelings. They don't know how to express what they're feeling or their emotions or their affections. And that all goes back to that, that aspect of their life where they were told, this isn't good. Like, it's not good to feel. So they pushed it down. The big misconception about our shadow is, for that example, being a man, not all aspects of shadows, like my shadow there might be some resentment or anger in there that I'm not used to. And yeah, they're not great qualities, but like I can dig into them and see them for what they are. But there's also like great gifts, abilities, potential in some of those shadows, aspects of yourself. For example, those two examples that we just talked about. And the man, a man who shows his emotions might grow up to be a great father. He might go into a career of being able, maybe he's a therapist or a psychologist or whatever. But he is afraid the things, those good things that are stuck in our unconscious and our shadow work, is because we're afraid of what would happen if we brought those to the light. If we were a man who was able to cry and show emotion, how would society feel us? We're afraid of what everyone else around us will think about those aspects of us. And that's why we're like, no, we're not having that. Like, we're not having that. They're not up here. Okay. So you're like, cool. Like, the shadow's not so scary. It can't be that scary. It's nothing dark, or, I don't have to offer a seance to the gods or anything like that. I just have to like do some soul work. Okay, cool. So where do you start? Well, the first part, I'm going to give you 3 places to start. And these are parts of your life where you can become aware of your shadow and find out what those shadow aspects are. There's more, yes, you have more than one probably shadow aspect about yourself. So number 1, the first one we're going to talk about is projection. Projection is just things we see in other people around us or on social media that really we don't like. And it's so easy, I know, for me as a person to look at other people's and see other people's shadow self or shadow aspects or things about them that probably aren't the best qualities in them, but those, and project those things, and they get you all fired up, and then you lash out and you're like, why am I lashing out on a total stranger? Or why am I lashing out on someone that I care about? And that's just a projection of yourself. And usually things we like bother us and other people are a reflection of ourselves. We're kind of a mirror of people we hang around, right? Or things we mirror each other. So for example, I'm just trying to think of an example of my own shadow work. I easily see anger in people, or resentment, or bitterness, or snarky comments. And as an empath, I'm like a human lie detector too. Like, I'm very keen on picking up those things. But one thing I've noticed is I can be like, oh my gosh, that girl or that guy is like, they're just so angry at the world. They're just so angry, and they just have so much resentment. Like, why? What is wrong with you? And then I might not lash out at them, but I'd be like, what is wrong with you? And then I have to take a step back, and I'm like, oh, there's parts of me that are so angry and so resentful. And then figuring out why, why do I feel this way? Where did this come from? And identifying those parts of your life. So projection, just start to become aware of what you project onto others, to ask yourself, not everything's going to be a reflection of yourself, but most of the time things that really get you fired up are. So ask yourself, why am I projecting this onto this person? Why is this making me so upset in this situation? Is this something I can look inward and figure out about myself? 2, triggers. Okay, social media is huge for me for this. I go through these weeks, and especially when I'm already in a crappy mindset, when things just start to trigger me and trigger me and trigger me, and I just get so fired up, or it's those people that are really close to me that know how to push my buttons, and they'll trigger me with things. And I'm like, why are you acting like this? Why are you doing this? So triggers, it's anything that gets your attention really quickly and just really fires you up, and you realize you need to take a step back and be like, okay, why is this post triggering me from a complete stranger on the internet? Why am I getting so worked up that they're speaking their voice? Maybe we don't agree about the same opinion, but why am I getting so worked up that they're using their platform to use their voice? This is just an example from my own shadow work. And something I realized was I have pushed down that part of me that was able to stand up for myself and be too much and be too loud. And I get triggered by people that can do it, because I'm like, no, we shouldn't be doing that. No, that's bad. So start to notice those triggers. Triggers are so life-changing. Once you start to realize that it's not all about you, like what people talk about and post and aren't about you. But what is about you is, it isn't about you at the same time. It's about you looking inward and taking them out of the equation and figuring out why this makes you so upset. And number 3 is becoming aware of patterns in your life, repetitive patterns in your life. If we're not addressing parts of our shadow aspect, they're going to keep showing up in our lives. They're going to keep showing up in patterns. Maybe not in the same situation, but they're going to show up. My big pattern and shadow aspect that I'm working through is anxiety, social anxiety, and just a whole shadow aspect of myself. I've realized in most patterns in my life is resistance, control, which I've always known I was a control freak, but something I've realized in my shadow work is that I resist almost everything in my human experience, causing me anxiety and feeling unsafe, and that all roots back to parts of my childhood and things I thought were bad. So start to look at the patterns in your life. You know, do you go into the same toxic relationships with people? Do you fall into the same patterns of arguing with people, addiction, anything like that? It can be any kind of pattern. That another pattern for me that always repeats itself is the notion that I have to be busy all the time, that busyness equals worth, and that I run into the same block every month or every week of like, okay, I got to do more, I got to do more, I got to do more. Why am I running into this same pattern, behavior, block? Really start to look into those kind of situations that have a common theme that pop up over and over and over in your life. So what's the goal of shadow work? The goal of shadow work is integration. It's to bring those dark aspects up to the light and have those kind of like intermingle together. And that really makes us become aware of who we truly are, who we are under the unconditioned all of society, of our parents, of our teachers, and really allows us to grow more as on a soul level and to enjoy our human experience fully. Shadow work leads you to total awareness of yourself, of your full self, and allows you to find yourself. I said in the beginning, it's not necessary to do shadow work. You don't have to be on a spiritual journey, a spiritual awakening, or just doing life and have to do shadow work. If you want to grow, though, it is going to help you grow, and it's going to help you just have so many healing opportunities to come your way to fix things, not to fix things, to heal things, to learn why we do things the way we do. And it's not complicated. Shadow work's not complicated. There's so many books on it. Okay, so if you want to start, one book I really highly recommend is, it's called Dreaming Through the Darkness, and it's by Charlie Morley. And it's really good. And it has, like, it basically goes in the shadow really more in depth. And then it has little exercises to do throughout the book. So I highly recommend that. But the thing about shadow work is that nobody can do it for you. There's no manual. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if we had a manual as we came into our life? Like, here's your manual for this lifetime. Thank you. That's what shadow work is about. It's kind of like figuring out your manual. So there's no manual. It's not complicated, but there's no system and there's no process. So you just have to do what works for you. And it's always evolving. And I think it's a journey and it's a process that you're on your whole life once you start doing it. Hey, are you ready to start some shadow work today? I'm going to give you 3 questions that you can answer today to start your own shadow work journey. So we're going to start in our childhood because that's where the shadow starts, in our childhood. 3 questions. 1, write these down and journal it out. Were you accepted as a child? Was I accepted as a child? Number 2, how did I feel the most of the time in my childhood? And number 3, what was expected to me? What was expected of me and was judged by people around me? This is going to be a great jumping off point. There are so many journal prompts. There's so many books out there. There's another book I like. I think it's called Soul Work. It has all journal prompts that you can journal through there. I just have a little journal that I write my stuff in when it comes through. Journaling is going to be the best way to start your shadow work and really dig into it. So I'm going to leave you with this. When your shadow aspects start to emerge, be kind. Be kind to yourself. You want to become aware of them without judgment. We're not going to judge them. We're not going to shame those aspects of ourselves. We're not going to become our shadow self, but we're going to look at that without judgment, and we're going to embrace it and become aware of it. It's awareness. It's not becoming our shadow self. Integrating that awareness with our conscious and our unconscious, the light and the dark. And just be kind and give yourself grace as you go through this, because it's a process. I feel like it's that Taylor Swift song. It's magical and messy and oh yeah, it's lonely. It's that. That's what shadow work is. But it's so rewarding and so fulfilling, and I cannot wait for you to start your journey to healing. If you liked this video, as always, please like, comment, subscribe to my channel. I post a new video every Wednesday, 9 a.m. Eastern.